Hello, everybody. It's time for another Tuesdays in the Shop. This is Gotham Quilts. I'm Yvette, one of the
And
owners, and this is Jen, another owner-ish
partner,
stuff
partner.
partner. Yeah, there you go. Today we don't have Andrea joining us. She's got other stuff she's doing tonight. Good for her. But we're here to tell you about a new pattern that we are releasing. Technically, we did debut it at QuiltCon. So if you saw us at our QuiltCon booth back in February, you already saw this pattern. But for the rest of the world who couldn't go to Raleigh, this is the official debut of our newest Threadsome pattern. And it just occurred to me that we probably haven't talked about Threadsome in this video for like a long time. So I'm guessing a lot of people, when I say Threadsome, they don't even know what I'm talking about. So Threadsome is our kind of sister company that we launched where we're developing patterns that we will be wholesaling to other quilt stores. And the theme of these patterns is modern takes on traditional handwork techniques. The first set of designs, we have a set of 6 designs at the beginning. They're all for wool, tongue twister. They're all for wool applique. So if you have seen wool applique on the market before, you know that most of it tends to be pretty traditional or like country or cutesy or has a cow on it or whatever, right? That's not really our vibe. We like modern and a little bit more minimal, a little bit more bright colors and less detail, less fussiness. So we were looking, oh, there's the cat. Hi, cat. We were looking on the market for patterns for wool applique that were our style, and we couldn't find anything. Some of the Sue Spargo stuff does hit this category, and we do have some of her patterns, but we couldn't find what we wanted. So we decided to design it ourselves. And so we launched this new business on the side that we're calling Threadsome. You can think of it as wholesome, but with the word thread at the beginning. And we had already shown you the very first design for it, which was that Lone Star quilt pattern, which we're calling Lorelei. We launched that, I think, God, when was that? Yeah, so that's the pillow for
Forever
Lorelei.
ago? Like maybe
I think
100
it
years ago?
think might have been September.
It could be.
I mean, time has lost all meaning, basically.
Long time, feels
Yeah.
like.
But so that was pattern number 1. And today we're going to show you pattern number 2, which honestly people liked at QuiltCon. We sold a lot of this pattern at QuiltCon. And Jen's holding it up. We are calling this one Sylvia. And the shape of this is based on a squircle. These are applique wool pieces that are freehand cut. So when you're cutting them, you decide how round or how square they are each individually. You can have a little bit of variation, and it adds to the effect instead of taking away from it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then after you've appliqued the wool on, then you can embellish with embroidery. In our sample, Jen used a bunch of different stitches, and in the pattern, we actually are documenting which stitch goes in which square, and we're referring you back to Sue Spargo's book that has the actual instructions for all those different stitches. So if you want to make it fancy like this, you can refer back to and get the book and do all the fancy stitches, but you actually don't really need to. You could just do straight stitch the whole way, or like zigzag, or something you already know how to do, and embellish it as little or as much as you want. Oh
Or
yeah,
not.
hold up the second one. Hold on, I'm making myself smaller. So this one your mom made, right?
Yep, mom did this one, and it's just appliqued so far. It hasn't been quilted or embellished in any way.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you quilted the first one, you did that kind of like machine,
Yeah,
swirly kind of thing, which adds a whole new layer. Yeah, see the quilting between the pieces? That adds a whole nother layer of texture. But you could easily hand quilt this instead, like even with
yep,
just like a straight grid, or just outline each squircle or something like that.
yeah.
It lends itself to a lot of variation.
Lots of ways to play with a simple shape.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
also a pretty good intro to wool applique because you're not making any weird shapes. These are pretty simple to stitch around, and they don't have to be perfect. So you don't have to worry about the precision or the how how correctly you cut out the shapes, right?
Yeah.
Jen appears to have just found a problem.
Now I'm looking at the back that I get to see the back of mom's work. which is meticulous.
Yeah. Yeah,
But this
because your
I'm
mom does all
noticing
that sashiko, right? So she does a lot of handwork.
she does a lot of handwork. I'm noticing, like, look at how white that thread looks, and it it blends
Yeah.
in
It
perfectly.
looks fine. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think the wool can take a lot of different thread tone variation and still blend it all in with no real issue.
Right. So for those of you who are not familiar with wool applique, the wool shapes are cut out and then you kind of whip stitch around them in a thin thread.
Mhm.
Um, what's nice about wool is it is pre-felted, so it doesn't fray, which means that you don't have to turn under the edge like in your normal applique on a sewing machine, and you don't
Yeah.
even have to fuse it. You just hold it down and stitch around it, and it's done.
Yep.
Jen, what kind of thread do you usually like for the applique step?
I like to use cotton. Most of the time I use Aurifil because I have whoop, a lot of
Yeah.
Aurifil.
It's our stash, you know? And
Um,
50 weight. You're using 50 weight?
50 weight Aurifil, yep, because that's what I have. I recently invested in the 60 weight Wonderfil Efina,
Oh, right.
EFINA. It's a little bit finer. It's really nice. And if you get the full collection, you have all the colors that come with the wool comes in too. So it made it a little bit easier for me as a designer. Certainly not an investment everyone needs to make,
And
but
that 60 weight is also cotton or that's wool?
also cotton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sue
Because we
Spargo
also have a
recommends
wool
wool.
thread, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
she recommends wool, and they have wool thread that matches in the colors, but I'm just comfortable with the cotton, and I use that.
Yeah. It's interesting because we did a little test, right? We did one sample where we used the wool and one sample where we used the cotton. And for everyone watching, like we're getting really in the weeds here. Like you could literally use any thread to do this
Oh, yeah.
applique. You generally want to match the color of the wool, not the color of your background fabric when you're picking the color of thread. But I found that for almost every color, if you just use like a kind of pale gray, it sort of just melts into it. So that way you don't have to keep changing colors, which personally drives me crazy when I have to keep changing colors.
Yeah.
In Aurifil, the color number is 2600. 2600. It's my favorite. It's this like
Dove.
dove gray. I bet you I can find one. Yeah,
Oh, I
it's
have
this.
pools of it over there, yeah.
This is my favorite color for all applique. So if I'm doing needle turn applique or this kind of applique, I basically just use this like 90% of the time. And actually, full disclosure, I use this like 90% of the time for machine quilting also because it just blends. It just
It's
melts
beautiful.
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really wonderful color. That's color 2600 for those of you who want to go get some yourselves. But going back to the thread type for wool applique, most of the time, me and Jen are using cotton thread to applique on the wool, and it's just fine. Oh, there's the cat again.
Yeah.
But if you want to get wool thread, it is a little bit more elevated to use the wool because the texture of your thread, the cotton will be a little bit shinier than the wool, right? And the texture is a little bit different. So you can sort of be like sloppier with your stitches if you're using wool because it really just melts into the texture of the wool, the felted wool that you're appliquing down.
This is appliqued with wool, and you
Oh,
can
is it? I didn't
see
remember that detail.
I must have decided to try it out. So you really can't see these stitches hardly at all.
Yeah. It's funny
Um,
because in some of them you can see it more, like the small light blue one to the right of your or to the left of your hand. Yeah, like on that one you can see the stitches more. It doesn't
yeah, a
really
little
matter
bit.
though. Like the kind of thing we're doing right now is not a real thing that a normal person would ever do, right? Like
Oh,
our
no.
our family members do not like hold these things up to their eyes to see like, can you see this stitch? This is just because we're nerds and we're really
Right.
into the process and the, like you do not have to be this
No,
into
you don't
which
have to be
kind
this
of
nit.
thread, it, it doesn't make that much of a difference, honestly. But I find it so pleasant to do wool applique. Don't you like the texture of it? I um it's
It's
like slow stitching, self-care, like
it's so nice. It's kind of like almost like eating chocolate. Like, it's almost that pleasant. Not quite, but almost. It's like I'm having a treat that's not gonna make me fat. Like, but
yeah.
it
So
is
for
it
those of
feels very
you
self-indulgent. That's what it is.
Yeah, literally the texture of it is so nice.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen, I'm gonna grab a pack of wool. So
Oh, we have
we
somebody from
recommend.
Ireland here watching. My
Oh,
goodness,
cool! It's like the middle of the night for her.
that is a
Um,
lot of devotion for nonsense.
for nonsense, fun nonsense.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is an example of a pack of wool from Suspargo. Suspargo is our favorite wool brand.
Yeah.
She dyes these colors herself in Ohio, and we have found them to be consistent from one batch to the next. So when you reorder, you know you're going to get the same thing, which is important. Plus, she does tend to keep her stuff in stock, which for wool in particular in this industry is very hard to find a consistent source for the wool. And we stock this in two sizes. This is a fat 64th size, which measures 4.5 inches wide by 7 inches tall. And we also carry the double this size, which is called a fat 32nd. These numbers are very hard to say. And that one is 9 by 7 or 7 by 9.
Yeah.
And for Sylvia, you would need one of these fat 32nd packs
I think it's
for
one of the big ones.
the 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
For
That's a little
make
one.
this is a little one just because that's what
Okay.
the only one I have to hold up. But
I'm just gonna argue with you.
thank you. But the big size of this is you need one of these packs, and that gives you all the different shades. And then you need like a yard of fabric for the background and some binding, and that's it. I'm going to put the QR code up on the screen for the pattern itself. We sell the pattern as a print copy that we will mail to you. But when you scan this QR code, there's a link to it in it for going to the Threadsome site. If you prefer to buy it as a PDF that you download immediately, you can do that from the Threadsome's website itself. We're not selling the PDFs directly, and none of the stores that become our wholesale customers will be able to sell PDFs directly. Only the Threadsome site will be selling the PDFs. Everybody else will sell print patterns. Oh, and Jen, let's talk about the background fabric that we used in this sample.
Right. So this is Kona
Make
Sheen.
it bigger. Is that better?
Can you see the sparkle?
I can see it. Yeah. When you're moving it around, you can see an iridescence.
So when you see Kona Sheen yardage, we decided to use the Kona Sheen to get the sparkle, but to kind of contrast with the flatness of the wool. And I really like the way they contrast. It's kind of fun. This goes back into being a fabric nerd.
Yeah.
But Kona Sheen by itself, before it's quilted and everything, it is so sparkly. And I'm an Italian girl and I like some sparkle, and it's almost too much sparkle for me. But once it gets stuff applique on it and you quilt it, it is much more tolerable level. So I think in order to keep your sparkle, you have to have a lot at the beginning. But it's really nice, and it doesn't feel scratchy at all or anything afterwards. I've quilted it, so it's really fun. And it adds an unexpected element in the background, that sparkly.
Yeah. And if you haven't heard of Kona Sheen before, it is Kona cotton with an iridescent layer on top. So it kind of has that mother of pearl kind of sheen to it. It's not a metallic, like it's not a gold or a silver color. It's like as if it was the color of the fabric and then that became shiny. So whatever
like
color the fabric is.
almost.
Yep, exactly. And we do stock some colors of that. I'm going to put that QR code up in case you want to check those out. I love the one that is in the picture for this QR code. It's the color name for this one is aquatic. Apparently, I don't know how to pronounce aquatic. And it's just this like really beautiful shiny blue. It makes me think of like the Caribbean and the ocean when you get that like shine on the surface of a wave. That's like what this looks like. It's so pretty. So you can imagine doing, like we did monochromatic for our sample. You don't have to do monochromatic, but if you wanted to, like imagine doing this sheen, this aquatic color with shades of teal wool on top. Like how beautiful would that be, and how textural and like kind of like an ocean. It would be really nice.
I'm thinking about the colors of the wool card. I wish I had brought it upstairs with me.
So I can share that. I have it.
It's
It's pretty easy to
Amazon green, oceanfront.
Wow, you've memorized the names of each color?
There's only 60 of them.
Only 60 of them.
They're both, two of them are in this.
Right. Yes.
They're in the patterns that I've been writing, so I'm not that good, but I will eventually know all the color names. I can't
Cool.
help it.
I can show my screen so you can see um so the Suspargo wool comes in like 8 color packs, I think, color options. Hold on, and I'll show it to you. Um, so the
Mm,
one in the sample is the first one, the grays that are
mhm.
shown here.
Yeah, and I
Um,
just didn't use the brown one.
right. But we are sold out of this color currently, so that's why you'll see this is a pre-order. Wonder if I can make this any bigger so it shows up bigger. That didn't really help. How about there we go, it's bigger now. So these I've set up as pre-orders in case you know you wanna do it in black and white like we did our sample, you can place your order now and we'll ship it to you as soon as it comes back in stock. But I think blues is what your mom used for her sample, right?
Yeah, my mom used the blues.
And then the teal is what I was just thinking
Oh,
would look really nice with that aquatic sheen.
that would
Look
be
at these
gorgeous.
colors, they're so pretty. So basically all of them are shades, right? So like light to dark-ish, except for nature. Nature is a really interesting one. Here's it bigger so you can see the breakdown. Of I don't really know why Sue did this. I assume that she had all those other groupings already, and then she introduced these colors that didn't necessarily fit into the existing progression, so she put these all together because they looked really nice together. But
She
how
used to
beautiful
have
would it
several
be?
different groups like this, and this is the
Yeah, and
last
she just
one. Yeah,
continued all the other ones except for
yeah.
this one. Don't know why. But how beautiful is this array? Like, if you did like a maybe like a linen color background
Oh,
and then
yeah.
use these colors for the squircles, I think that
Well,
would
now
be
I'm
so
gonna have to
pretty.
make, like, 4 more, Yvette.
Well, you know I'm good at that. Suggesting, you know,
Oh,
or
yeah,
actually, half the time I say to you, "I'm gonna do X,"
that
and
works.
then instead plant the idea in your head, and then
Yes, you're
you do
very
it
good at
instead
just
of me.
winding me up and letting me go,
Yeah,
which I
remember that, hexagon flower thing? What was that called? Kingfisher?
oh,
Like,
yeah.
I made,
I
like, 2 and
finished
you made
that
the whole
quilt.
quilt.
I finished
Yeah.
it, you stinker. I
Yep,
should bring it
and it
over to
looked
you.
great.
It's beautiful. One of my favorite
Okay.
patterns.
Yeah, that quilt came out so good. Um, yeah, anyway, this is the quilt that the pattern that we just launched is called Sylvia, and we are going to celebrate this new pattern by doing a sew along. So we did just announce that we're doing a sew along starting next month for our previous newest pattern, which was Quota, the one we released at QuiltCon also. After that is over, no, actually, while that's still running, we're going to start this on June 1st. And this will be a 1 month sew along, and we're going to cover everything from wool applique to basics of needlepoint with a couple of stitches, and then quilting, binding, the whole thing. So you can make the whole thing and have fun doing it with everybody else with you. We'll have a space in the Gotham Quilts community, like we always do when we're hosting videos, and Q&A and sharing and giveaways, and it'll be fun. I think I'm gonna make mine all purple. Wouldn't that be
Mm.
cool? Like purple background, purple
I'm
squircles.
surprised you're not gonna do, like, yellow background with pink squircles.
Yeah, I have been doing a lot of yellow and pink lately, haven't I?
Yeah, and a
And I
gray
don't even
binder.
really like yellow. Like, I don't know where that all came from.
Well, this one is nice, like, you can use something different in the background because a lot of it doesn't show that much.
You just reminded me that Nancy picked out, I can't remember now, but we picked out a colorway for her, which had a very odd background color. I'm gonna
Yeah,
ask her to send me a picture because I don't remember. I remember going through the process of picking it, and then the actual final thing is not in my brain right now. I'm gonna
yeah,
ask her to send me a picture because I bet you whatever that was gonna be really pretty too.
yeah.
Um, are you gonna make another one while we're doing the sew along?
Well, I think I kinda have to, right? Isn't that how it works?
I mean, I guess. Oh,
Yeah,
we
I
didn't
prob
talk about the size. What size is it? I had it open and I
you'll have to
closed
commit it is this big.
it. It's 19 by 21, so 19 wide and 21 tall. So it's meant to hang on your wall.
Yeah,
Um, for those of you who don't have a lot of experience with wool applique, in general, wool projects tend to be smaller than your traditional regular quilt. And the reason for that is that the wool itself is much more expensive than the cotton that we use for piecing. So if you think about doing like most of them are applique. The wool goes on the background, and the background is something more less expensive than the wool. Mainly because if you try to do the whole thing in wool, it would be a very expensive project. Also, it would weigh a ton. It's much heavier than cotton, right?
Yeah.
So in general, that's what you're making smaller things and it's an applique onto a background.
It would feel so nice though, but yeah. You just get
Oh
so
yeah.
much more cotton.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like there are, you can't get prints in wool, right? So like
Yeah.
it's a different animal, I guess
Yeah.
there is the right word. Um, so yeah, I'm excited. I think this would be a great intro to wool applique. If you've never done it before, maybe you haven't really done any handwork even. This is totally approachable because the shapes they don't have to be perfect. If it's not exactly right, no one's going to notice. It's still right, you know?
Yeah. It will use up most of that kit. I'm thinking like I think the pattern calls for 4 colors, and I think the pack comes with 5
I'm looking. The
versus
pattern
6.
calls for 4 colors and the pack comes with 6.
6. Okay, so there will be you can add more in, but I think the way I designed it, I really was pretty thoughtful about using those 4, and there was almost nothing left at
That
the
makes
end.
sense.
I try to
Yeah.
do that with the wool as much as I can, like, uh, I don't wanna generate
Well,
somebody's
and then we get into the whole, all of us love our scraps, right? Our cotton scraps. But wool scraps are kind of annoying because you end up with these little funny shapes, right? Um, yeah. So Jen and I were just talking about what do you do with your wool scraps, right? We're gonna come up with something I'll use
I
for them.
I have a solution, but it's machine
It's
intensive.
very annoying. Yeah, no, that I don't think most people want to buy that. If we're talking about needle felting, like
Uh,
you, I don't want to do that. Oh, look, Nana just told us she's in. She left a
to
comment
do
and
that
she's
with a
gonna
nature
use the
pack. So
nature
now
color.
as good as you are at winding me up and setting me loose, you do the same thing to my mother and you're not even doing it on purpose.
Yeah, and Nana is her mom, by the
Yeah,
way.
that's my mom, Nancy.
That she's the shill in the audience, but she really does actually sew all these samples and stuff.
She does. She's so this one
She made the blue
she's an
one.
excellent soldier. She's very good, very supportive.
Oh, yeah, Melissa's saying she saw it hanging at QuiltCon. Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yeah, it was actually the bestseller at QuiltCon. Out of all of those Threadsome patterns that we bought, we sold the most copies of this one, and the
So
most black wool too.
did you know why I named it Sylvia?
Oh,
You
right.
know
Should
who
we talk
Sylvia
about
is? It's
names?
not just so our naming system is that our threads and patterns are vintage ladies' names, but
Yep,
my grandmother's name is Sylvia.
yep. And we
So
also do a little bit of alliteration. So
yeah,
this before this had a real name, the working name for this was Squircles because that's the shape that we used. So Sylvia Squircles.
we have to use alliteration or else I can't remember a darn thing.
Yeah, none of us have any long-term memory anymore. For Lorelei, which is the Lone Star, it's Lorelei Lone Star.
Yep. Yeah. Otherwise, it was just like, "What is it? What is it?"
Yeah. We have Helena hexagons, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
we actually have how many more patterns coming? Like 4 more patterns coming. And we haven't
Yeah.
figured out exactly how we're gonna launch them, but they're coming soon. So keep an eye
Yeah.
out if maybe you'll do some wool applique this summer. It's very portable. Doesn't sound like something you'd want to do in the summer because it's wool, but it's like this much wool. It's not going to be covering your lap or anything.
Right. They're small, these.
Yeah.
We only did the one really big one. Uh, I don't know
Yes.
why we did that first. That wasn't a
But
great
it's
idea.
gorgeous. I love
It
that
is
quilt.
it is gorgeous. And I finally did my research. I did a sample and I washed it in the washing machine
Oh,
and it
right.
was fine. I don't have it with me. It's back in Florida. But it got a little bit fuzzy, but actually it made it like a little richer, a little bit more textured. But it was
So
fine. Nothing ran, nothing shrank.
for everyone who missed the segue that just happened, we
Oh,
are now
sorry.
talking about can you wash a project that is wool applique? Because that's the number one reason people ask us, or number one question that people ask us. Like at QuiltCon, I think we got asked that 100 times, right? Um, because we're all used to coming from a world of all cotton, and you can put it in the machine even on hot, and it's fine, right? Like cotton thread, cotton fabric, cotton batting. it's going to go through the wash no problem. Most of us, when we wash wool sweaters, for example, if you have a 100% wool sweater, you're not going to throw that thing in the machine, right? You're going to wash it by hand. Um, a lot of the times, if you ask a traditional wool applique person the question, how do you wash this? The answer is you don't.
Right.
So if it's a wall hanging, like most of us wouldn't wash even a cotton wall hanging usually, right? Like you finish it, you hang it on the wall, that's it. You
Right.
might dust it every so often or do that thing where like you beat the thing to get the dust out of it, but you wouldn't put it in the washing machine. So that's what we mostly answer to people, but we wanted to test it out. So Jen is explaining that she made a sample of wool applique and just threw it in the washing machine. And what happened?
It came out cleaner than when it went in. It was
Well, yeah, I would hope it would be cleaner. That's the
it
one
did get
thing about handwork is like if you don't wash your hands, tip
yeah.
for everyone. Every time you go to pick up your handwork, wash your hands first. The amount of like weird stuff that ends up on your hands and you don't even realize, like little bits of ink or little bits of hand lotion or whatever it is. So like before you start, you put it down, you pick it up again, wash your hands and then pick it up. It will save you so much cleaning at the end of the project.
Yeah. No, it got the wool got a little bit fuzzier because I think this wool is felted a little bit, but it felted a little bit more in the wash,
Which
but
is normal. Yeah.
I didn't do anything special to it. I threw my little wall hanging that I made into the wash with a pair of towels so that it would get agitated because with the big quilt, you wouldn't be able to put it into a lingerie bag.
Right.
There's like no way to protect it, so I didn't protect this thing, and it was fine. I was totally satisfied with it. It
Yeah.
doesn't look brand new anymore, but it's a
Right.
quilt that got
But it
washed. Just
also has
a quilt.
that, you know how when you wash a regular quilt, you get that crinkle after the
Yeah,
first wash? Most of us love that texture,
right.
right? The other thing I would say is for everyone listening, you probably don't want to throw a towel in with it because
Well,
a towel actually will add friction, and so it'll be more worn if you put a towel in.
yeah, this was just for the stress test.
Yes, exactly. So, like,
I would
not
definitely
recommended.
wash it by itself.
Yeah, I probably will wash a wall hanging by hand
Oh,
personally
yeah,
because it's small enough that you just put it in the sink and soak it. It doesn't need to be scrubbed, right? Like
right.
you're just trying to get whatever's on it off it, or you're trying to get it softer for the final, shape of it.
This
Um,
was just a bed quilt sample test.
right. And you
I
were also
wasn't gonna
seeing
make
if you could ruin it to some extent, right? And it went through
this
the
thing
wash just fine.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Although I do have a front loading washer, which is a little bit more
Oh,
gentle.
no agitator. Yeah, that's a good point. So we probably would suggest that if you have a traditional kind of machine where you have an agitator in the middle, that it's probably better to do hand washing instead of that because that adds so much more friction, right?
Right.
Yep.
I do know that Sue Spargo, when she says not to wash her stuff, it's because her stuff is intensely embroidered and she uses a
Fair
variety
point.
and dyed embroidery floss. So she's not worried about the wool, she's worried about the floss.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you, especially if you're using like hand dyed wool, I'm sorry, hand dyed floss,
Yeah.
those tend to bleed. And the last thing you want to do is spend all this time, put it in the wash and have it come out ruined because the color bled, right? Did you put a color catcher in when you washed yours? No.
Mm-mm.
A
No, I
color
want to see what would
catcher
happen.
fair. A color catcher, for those who don't know, is something you can buy in, like, a regular grocery store or CVS. It's sold in the laundry aisle, and they look like dryer sheets, but you put them in the wash, and what they do is they collect the dye that comes out of your clothes or your quilt. So what happens if the thing you're washing has released dye, it ends up in the water, right? This color sheet is a magnet for those little bits of pigment that are floating in the water. So when like I've washed a quilt for the first time and had my color catcher come out purple and the quilt, which had a white background, was fine because all that purple dye ended up in the color catcher instead. So if you don't have a color catcher box at home, I would definitely recommend you grab one. And
Oh, yeah.
I always wash my regular quilts with a color catcher in them at least the first time. When a quilt's like 10 years old, it's not going to keep bleeding at that point. But at the beginning, especially if you have very strong colors in there, it could bleed. Even cotton can bleed.
Yeah.
Oh, Melissa's noticing Jen's earrings. So
Yes.
we actually don't sell these anymore. We just had them at QuiltCon. We brought them there for our friends at QuiltSpot. That brand is QUILTSPOT. It's Quilt Spot. So you can go on their website if you want to buy really cool earrings. She's got bracelets and like necklaces and like all sewing and I think she's got some knitting themed stuff too.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay,
All
I think
right.
that's everything we wanted to talk about today. I hope you like this new pattern and want to come hang out with us and make it. I forgot to say that we have a sign up form for the block of the month, which I did not make a QR code for. So hold on a second while I go find it. So if you know that you want to join us for this sew along, you can go to 1 second. So I just put the QR code up. It's no picture on this one. So if you scan this QR code that's up there, there's a little blog post that explains the plan. And then at the bottom, there's a form that you can put your email address in, and that'll notify us that you want to be told that stuff is happening for the sew along. So when we kick off on June 1st, you'll get an email welcoming you and giving you a link to access the videos and that kind of thing. I think we probably will get like a decent amount of people joining us.
I
And
think so.
then you can share on social media, you can post in our community site and like get help from other people or show off what you're doing. It'll be fun.
It's always more fun to make something when other people are making it, which
Yeah. And
is
see
how I
what
end up
colors
making
they
so many
picked.
things.
And that like sometimes someone you might have a question. Probably someone else had that question too. So like when we do these groups, people help each other.
Yeah.
They hit a rough patch and they post about it, and that might help somebody else not be struggling at that same point. Why are you making a face?
Oh, no, it's fine. It's just my face. My face says, "Jen forgot where her glasses are, and she
Oh,
can't read the words on the side."
yeah. Actually, I didn't even notice you weren't wearing your glasses. Yeah.
I take them off, well, as you know, after
And
the
then you lose
QuiltCon
them. I
drama,
know.
I put them down, and then I wander away. I
Yeah,
think
guess
Andrea
where
has my
Jen
other
lost
pair.
her glasses last time?
I put
In
them in the
Brawley.
tissue box, and they came
But did
home.
you? I think they just fell down.
No, I put them in the tissue box so they wouldn't get scratched.
But then forgot.
Oh, yeah, immediately upon having them off my head. I have no You see how I
Yeah.
drive the conversation? The crazy train goes right off the tracks? Everything in my brain is like that.
Well, everybody likes your crazy brain, so it's
Oh,
okay. All right. Did we have any housekeeping we had to talk about today?
I don't know, we've got
We-
it's not the beginning
Oh,
of the month.
well, it kind of is. But you know what's coming? The new Tula group. Tula Pink Roar, which is the dinosaur collection. If you're on our email list, you've seen it already. Free Spirit told us they're going to start shipping to stores, I think yesterday. We haven't gotten a shipment notification yet, so it hasn't shipped yet, but it should start. We should get that notification by the end of the week, and it should arrive by next week, and then we can start filling the pre-orders. So if you haven't pre-ordered yet and you've been waiting till the last minute, it is now the last minute. Put your orders in.
I've been doing so good about resisting the Tula stuff in my stash lately, and the dinosaur one is gonna kill me, though.
That main print, okay, so I can't really talk about this without showing you because that just seems cruel, right? The main print is what we turned into a little quilt. Let me pull that up. So this is the quilt design, the really simple quilt design that we came up with for the main print in the group, which is a double border print. So this piece of it is at one of the selvage edges, and then it repeats on the other selvage edge. So the width of fabric, the center of the print is this print, and then on each edge you have this print. So basically this is like a giant quarter square triangle where you're fussy cutting to get that section of the border into the quilt. This is for a baby quilt. So this is a quilt kit that we're going to be we're already taking pre-orders for, and we're offering it in both of the colors. So that main print, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. That main print comes in this kind of like foresty gray kind of color, and then it comes in the pink, which of course everyone knows the pink one is my favorite one. And I just keep thinking about what else can I do with this print, right? Like fussy cutting all the various things that are in here, and then all this awesome negative space. And you can even use this part as another fabric. Somebody could, like a school teacher or something, could make like a skirt with this as the border on the bottom. I personally wouldn't wear that, but like it would be awesome for somebody who could wear something like that. I'm really excited. When this comes, I'm gonna be chopping into it for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. It's a good thing it's not at the shop yet. I'll be there tomorrow
It
to
won't
work
be
with it.
here by tomorrow because we didn't get a shipment notification.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, thank so my glasses have appeared. I have no idea.
Hey, magic.
Now I can see, and I'm too close to the screen.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed Sylvia. We will be back next week with something that we don't know what it is yet, but we have a lot of stuff coming. Like behind the scenes, so many things are in the works. Like Jen was just saying, like, I have this to-do list, and when I finish one thing, there's just some other thing added onto my to-do list. And yes, that is true. And we have a lot of stuff coming. You don't want to miss it. I assume if you're watching us, you're already on our email list. But just in case you're not, you definitely want to join the email list because that's who
Yeah.
gets first dibs on everything. We always send a notification to the email list first before we say it to anybody else. So stay tuned. We will be back. Thank you for being here today, Jen. I will see you next week. Same time, same place, 6 o'clock or 6:30 p.m. on Tuesdays. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.